All right, we should be live. You're listening to ACAB Radio. This is episode 27. We're presented to you by Food Not Bombs Las Vegas. That's foodnotbombslasvegas.org and Nevada Cop Block, nvcopblock.org. We're your hosts, King Ron, Jay Leifer, and Kelly Special K Patterson. We got a great show for you guys today. We got some body cam footage, local stories, national viral news stories, all kinds of good stuff. But I wanted to start with your articles, Kelly, on Nevada Cop Block. Might as well start with this one, which is the most recent officer-involved shooting here in Vegas.
Yeah, it's the guy that was armed with a fucking piece of plastic with some duct tape, or not duct tape, electrical tape around it.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is, I saw the original report of that, and it said somebody had called to report that there was a person with either a tool or a long stick.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from the spokesperson at Metro that comes out to do their interviews. And in that article, you can see the video of that where she states that.
Yeah, I remember watching that the day that it happened. She was on scene, and she said somebody called the police on, like you said, a tool or a long stick. Nobody mentioned anything about a weapon.
There's never a weapon
So my obvious reaction was, well, the guy wasn't doing anything illegal in the first place, so they should have left him the fuck alone.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, and I also brought this up in that article. The idea, so when they came up with the body cam and they're doing the press conference for that, they turned around and said that it was reported that he was carrying a machete, and also that he was either a machete or a Slim Jim, and that he was looking into cars and acting like he was going to break into the cars.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about that is the original story doesn't have anything about him looking into cars.
Right, they add to the story as to
the
narrative.
Yeah, so the other, people being reported as suspicious within neighborhoods is not, and not doing anything, especially when it's people of color, is not an unusual thing. It's not an uncommon thing. That they have that Nextdoor app. And there was a big scandal because people were reporting minorities walking through their neighborhood as suspicious people on that app.
I've seen it myself on that app, man, constantly through my neighborhood.
They had to do a giant update on that app to try to stop that. That's how prevalent it was. And there was also a story of there was an Indian family, and one of their relatives, I believe it was the grandfather of that family.
Oh, right. I remember this, yeah.
And I think it was in Baltimore. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but it was a pretty well-known case. He was just walking through the neighborhood, and somebody reported him as suspicious, and the cops came out and broke his back. And I think he ended up dying, but he was definitely...
He was an elderly gentleman. He was a grandfather. It wasn't like some young guy.
Yeah, and he had done nothing. He was simply
dark. He was dark-skinned.
He was a person of color within the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So somebody calling up and reporting somebody as being suspicious by itself is not an uncommon thing. So the idea that somebody called up and reported him as being suspicious doesn't justify them murdering him.
Yeah.
So, like I said, when the body cam came out, then they had adjusted the story to... This guy had a machete in the original call, and he was breaking in, or he was acting like he was going to break into cars.
Yeah. So people would think, hearing that, oh, well, this is just new details coming out, or it's not that big of a deal. But what they're doing is they're changing the narrative to justify using that, deadly force.
That's right, lethal force, absolutely.
When it's the original story doesn't call for that type of force, but they change small details, turning, a gentleman walking down the street with a tool, acting suspicious, into somebody going door to door, going into vehicles, might have a Slim Jim or a machete. So it definitely changes the story, right?
And the original interview, why wouldn't she have brought up those things?
Exactly.
And what'll happen is 2 years from now, when they do that, fake fact-finding
mission,
review,
if they even do,
where
right.
they don't try at all to find any facts,
Mm-hmm.
they'll release the 911 call, and it won't have that on there, but people will have forgotten because it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Childress was murdered because he was somebody that they tried to stop, and they claimed that he had something dark in his hand at first. Then it became he had a cell phone in his hand, and they thought it was a gun, and he refused to drop it. When we went to the that fake fact-finding review,
right.
turns out the cell phone was in his pocket.
Yep.
It was not even in his hand.
There was nothing in his hand.
Yeah.
And I think I'm the only one that reported that, by the way.
Yeah, it's
So.
definitely up to independent media to combat these narratives, because the public at large, they don't really notice these minuscule changes. The news headlines change so quickly with everything going on. I mean, if they even talk about police brutality, it's just a 30-second blurb and people forget about it, move on. But we notice these little differences, and it's key in them relieving themselves of any culpability, basically.
And the general gist of that story is obviously the changing narrative. But, we've already mentioned it before. When I was watching the actual body cam video, they state that at one point, at the point where they shot him, he was only 10 feet away from them.
Right.
And he had moved that stick around. He had adjusted his hat while it was in his hand and stuff. So there's no way from 10 feet away you could not realize that there was no blade there. It was not a sword. It was, you could tell that, And
you could tell that he, had some issues.
For sure.
That they should have called in, a mental health professional.
CIT.
And he was never aggressive.
No.
Never aggressive.
never attacked them. And
never made threats.
And they have
like
their
that.
gun out pointed at them. The thing that they used to fall back on when people actually had a knife was this 21-foot rule. I think it was 27-feet rule. So the 27-foot rule was supposedly before you could pull your gun out and defend yourself, somebody with a knife could be on top of you and do, attack you with the knife and do, deadly damage. But the thing about that, even that ruling is twisted because they already have their gun out and they have it pointed at him. So there's not that lag between realizing that he was coming after you, pulling your gun out, aiming it at him, and shooting him. You've already done all that. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, as I said, there's no way they didn't know that he didn't have a knife. So first of all, the best he could do is hit them with a plastic stick.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's two of them. So one of them could have took a taser out, hit him with the taser, and the other one could have kept the gun trained on him so that if he, did something or tried to attack them or the taser didn't work, they still have that gun available if necessary.
So we talked about this shooting a lot in the last video. We also, in our last episode, we also showed the body cam video. So if you guys want to see that, check out our last episode. We also talked a bit about this dude, Officer Derek Colling, and we talked about his past with Metro and, the people he killed here in town and why he was fired from Metro. Well, he ended up being hired in his hometown of Wyoming, rehired, and he killed somebody there recently. So we had a couple updates you posted on the website, Kelly, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so the first update is that they officially confirmed that he was the deputy that shot Robbie Ramirez.
Which they didn't want to release because the sheriff was up for re-election. So as soon as the elections were over, then they came out and said, it was this guy that we never should have rehired in the first place.
Yeah, the sheriff was up for re-election, and he won, of course. But they released that information. The district attorney released it at 4 o'clock on election day, when, obviously it had been decided already.
Mm-hmm.
And the police department didn't officially release it until the next morning. So they waited until the election was over so they wouldn't hurt the sheriff.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was another update with the story.
Yeah, so the second update, part of the original story was, there is a body cam video of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns out there's dash cam video and there's a body cam video. But somehow the body cam became unplugged from the battery. And if you watch the dash cam, they say like while they're fighting, they're saying it's not difficult to unplug it while you're fighting with a suspect, which in the first place, they know that's something that's going to happen, especially in a deadly force situation where you have to shoot somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you create such a vulnerability that it's easily unplugged?
And this is going to become a common theme. I mean, not only for this show, but for subsequent shows that as we go through about body cams not working at crucial moments.
Oh, yeah.
And they also
So
they released the
use it
video
again and again.
Yeah, they released the video in a disingenuous way. Instead of releasing it to the public, they invited select members of the local media and released it to them. And then that media released a really chopped up, incomplete video.
Yeah, highly edited.
Stating that it was too graphic for them to show.
Yeah.
But if you watch what you can see on that video, they're not wrestling around. So that whole idea that the body cam became unplugged because they were struggling with each other, really what happens is the Robbie Ramirez advances toward Collins a little bit, and he looks like he's kind of throwing punches, but he's not really connecting or anything, and they're not wrestling around. So there's no, jostling that would knock the video loose. What you do see toward the end is it looks like he slips and falls down, and he's not visible on the dash cam. And since they cut it off, you don't know if that's the end, but that's where that body cam would come into effect because he would still be visible on the body cam. So who knows? If he fell down and he's on the ground, there's no reason to shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the end of the video is him falling down, it shouldn't be justifiable for him to shoot him because he's laying on the ground. It's not a threat at that point.
I feel like not only did the Wyoming Police Department fail the people by rehiring this dude in the first place, but they also failed them by not doing the public justice in being transparent and releasing all the footage they have to the public. And then also, I feel like the media definitely plays a role in this, in that,
So you
they're
think
not doing
do you think it's
justice
collusion?
to the public. Oh, for sure. You know how it works. But it's just crazy
part and
that
parcel.
they would.
Yeah.
And there is a local group that has started up. It's I forget the exact name, but it's in the article.
Definitely head over to Nevada Cop Block.
Yeah.
Check out the article.
So it kind of sprung up overnight. It's a local group, and it's they're basically demanding that they release the body cam video.
Nice.
And also, they had one of the local newspapers had a online poll asking should the sheriff's department have released the video, and the last time I saw it was 92% said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how they're serving the public,
Yeah, they don't care. It's like they want to give the image of transparency without being fully transparent. We see that happening more and more often with Metro. So they say, oh, yeah, we release all our body cam footage, but more and more lately, especially this year, we're not getting full videos. I mean, there was that guy that robbed a super pawn, I think it was, and the video ends. You don't see when they sick the dog on him. You don't see when they gun him down.
Yeah.
Same with the last shooting we were just talking about. They only show the first shot, but they shot the guy 7 times. So they claim, well, this is for your own good. The public can't handle seeing this kind of footage. You know what I mean? But really, they just don't want the reality of the situation getting out, just how brutal the police are on the people, and just how they unload their whole clips. And so we're going to have a body cam coming up where it actually was released through the courts in Denver. It was like 50 shots. So I mean, if
Yeah.
it happened in Vegas, you'd see the first shot, and that would be the end of it. But
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I also brought up in that article is the propensity that the LVMPD has for losing body cam videos or forgetting to turn their video on or it becoming corrupted. And I linked to a bunch of examples in previous stories, but that's a pretty common theme. And that's why, like in the article, I said, Derek Colling had his, didn't forget his training at the LVMPD because they do that. They make video disappear, or they forget to turn it on, or there's some kind of malfunction.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common thing with the LVMPD when it doesn't benefit them.
Right.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
correct.
So definitely check out those articles. That's one of the great things about NV Cop Block is it's not just one story and then we forget about it. Constantly going back, providing updates. If an officer is charged, we often follow up with the story, months or even years later. Oh, big surprise, the charges were dismissed. And, following through with cases that the mainstream media just lets be swept under the rug. So go check out the website, nvcopblock.org.
And that is one of the things I would encourage anybody who is following police misconduct and advocating for accountability is to follow those cases, because that's what happens often is you have that arrest and it's usually something so egregious that they can't get away with not arresting the cop. And everybody's like, oh, see, he got punished, he got
Right.
held
The justice
accountable.
has been served.
And then you have
But-
where he gets a plea deal, or they drop the charges altogether.
Or he's allowed to retire.
Yeah, not even fired.
Right. And keeping all his benefits and then move on.
Yeah.
To reign terror in a different city,
Yep.
in a different state.
Yeah, that's the other thing is they allow them to retire or to resign, and then they get hired somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah. So not only check out the website, but I think weren't you working on a newsletter that people can sign up for?
Yeah, you can go on. You can go on the site and you can sign up to the site. And I haven't set it up completely, but eventually there'll be the option of either having a email every time a story is posted, which is the way it's set up right now. But so that people don't get their emails boxes flooded, we're going to set up like a weekly wrap-up kind of thing, like a weekly.
And you can select just
Consolidated.
how
Right.
much you
Yeah.
want to remain involved.
How much you
right?
could stomach of the police brutality that we expose.
Yeah, and so that's
Right.
good,
Definitely.
just to keep up with the site. But the reason that's also important, and the reason that I started working on it, is because of the censorship with Facebook. And we don't know, if there's going to be another purge and we're going to be completely off of social media at some point. And
Yeah.
beyond that, I think that the steps that Facebook and other social media things have done is something where we should be moving away from it on our own. We should be
Absolutely.
vacating social media.
So we're going to be trying to go to some of these other platforms. Not trying, but we will when we get some time. MeWe, Minds.com. Those are two that I definitely want to get at least ACAB Radio, Nevada Cop Block onto these platforms, just because they're blockchain based. They don't censor anything. So
Yeah, and that's really
into
been kind of a long time coming, because there's been social media has been less effective over the last couple of years, but really Facebook especially and Twitter and YouTube are where you can reach new people that
Yeah.
aren't already following your stories, and where you can reach a mass of people.
yeah.
But with the recent purges and the recent throttling of shares and that sort of thing, that's not the case as much as it used to be, and I think it's not going to be the case at all soon.
Yeah. So that can be some of the issues with other alternatives like MeWe and Minds, is that these are people that already realize that censorship is a problem and leave. So they're already, people that are pretty well informed, already follow police brutality or other anarchists or anti-war, peace, freedom movements, those type of like-minded individuals. So it can become an echo chamber when you go to these other platforms. That's why I'm encouraging everybody, spread it.
Move over, spread
make
it.
make Facebook the next MySpace.
And
what I mean?
the trade-off with that used to be, you had to deal with the spam and the ads and giving up your personal information and, having that, you could try to minimize it as much as possible, but you still have some private information being out, put out to these corporations to use for ads.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the value, used to be if you were in independent media, you had limited resources to do your own ads. So the value of reaching people, you would have to offset that with what you gave up. But that's not becoming an offset anymore because they're limiting our reach.
Yeah, so they're throttling pages, pages that are anti-war, peace, freedom, anarchist thought, police accountability. All these types of pages their reach is being limited. Ours especially, where it just won't show up in news feeds. Personally, I just got off of a ban for sharing our show into groups, and it's not like I'm spamming into every group that I'm a part of. It's specifically police accountability groups that want this kind of content. That's why people join these groups, and the admins of the groups encourage this kind of material, and so I share the content in there, and I get banned for a week. So that's just me trying to get our show out there, try to get new viewers, which is what Facebook is for. It's for you to put out your own content to reach people, and it's people that want this information, and they're, banning us for it. So I just did it again. I'm sure I'll get banned again. But
and I've had that, and I've actually never had an outright ban from Facebook. I don't know why or how I've avoided it, but I've had where they're like, you're not allowed to share anymore for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's me sharing between pages, and it's selectively doing that to pages that are police accountability pages or whatever subject that I'm working on at the time. It's not me just spamming it around to random pages.
I mean, even if it's your pages, you started the page, you should be able to decide what goes on it.
Right.
And your viewers are the ones that go and like the page. So if they liked the page, then they like
there's
what
people
you're
that are
putting up
looking
there.
for that
They want
information.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's even private pages that are locked down, like that they ban and edit content.
Mhm. Even your own timelines.
so-
you can
yeah.
post something on your own timeline, and they'll say it goes against their community standards. Like, this is my fucking timeline, dude, and it's not even...
And I also have events where normally you can invite 500 people to an event.
Unless you're
And
Kelly.
right, and some, it's sort of random also, but every once in a while, like, they block me down to like 50 people or something like that.
Yep.
And these are events I have, I maintain lists of people. When I invite people to events,
You're
like if
keeping lists.
I'm doing an art show, I invite artists and people that I think might actually come to that. I don't just randomly.
Right,
Invite your
pick
whole
people out of
friends
state,
list.
and people
So-
in other countries
Right,
that,
so
won't be able to attend.
I'm not
Sure.
spamming people with events.
Yeah.
So if I invite you to a Nevada Cop Block event, you're somebody, first of all, in the location where I'm at doing that event, if it's, location based.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're somebody that's displayed an interest in, police accountability.
Yeah, I did the same thing for the Tashi Brown Mother's Day vigil. So I went through all my friends list, people that I know would be interested, people that are in Vegas. I mean, went through all my friends. Took a fucking long time, dude, just to make sure I'm inviting the right people that I think would show up. And then when I click invite, after selecting them all, it says, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
we can't do this at this time. It's like, fuck you.
Right. And then they'll be like, they'll let you do that sometimes, and then the next time you try to do it, they'll be like, it looks like you're using this function
In a way that it
wasn't intended for.
Yeah.
And like, no, I'm inviting people to an event. That's what it was intended
That's
for.
what it is.
That's exactly the fucking purpose.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So fuck Facebook. Like I'm saying, we, that trade-off of giving your personal information, there used to be,
Right, you got something
you had
for
to
it.
kind of knuckle down and do that. But we're getting to the point where we can just clear ourselves and be private and still reach people if we go back to, web-based and
Yeah.
newsletters and that sort of thing.
So yeah, that's why it's so important. I mean, bookmark Nevada Cop Block, foodnotbombslasvegas.org. Bookmark the pages, sign up for newsletters, and then we cut out the middleman. We don't have to worry about censorship. Another site you guys should check out that Facebook
We should do hashtag
censored.
fuckzuck. I don't know if that's already out there, but it should be.
It should
If it isn't, we should start it.
Definitely. Another page that's been a victim of censorship was the Free Thought Project. So here's a couple of their articles. Go check out their page. So we do Food Not Bombs Las Vegas. Well, Food Not Bombs out here in Las Vegas. And so this story really hit home. It was a group sharing food, having picnics just like we do. And the government came in basically and said, you don't have a permit. You can't share with these people, people that are obviously hungry, need these types of resources, and poured bleach all over the food so that, because when they told them to throw it out, the activists were like, well, we'll just take it out of the trash. I mean, that's something that Food Not Bombs does, is we go and dumpster dive and salvage what we can, reduce waste.
By the way, is what homeless people do when you don't provide them with
Meals.
healthy food.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They go and get spoiled food out of the garbage.
And now
So
they
you're not
they
protecting their
essentially
health.
poisoned the
And-
food while people are there hungry watching.
Yeah.
And there's
What kind of
I don't know how
human
much
being does
I
that?
haven't read the Free Thought Project version of this story, so I don't know how much they got into this, but there's a couple layers to this story.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is they were saying, they needed a permit and this permit is free. But then their complaint was the people are cooking it at the home, so it's homemade food, and they're transporting it in their cars. So, it's not being properly refrigerated or heated.
Yeah.
So the thing about that, and I commented on one of those original stories when it first came out, and somebody was like, or actually somebody tagged me on Facebook, but the point is that somebody was like, well, why didn't they just go get the permit? It's free. The problem is they want them to set up a commercial kitchen to share homemade food with people, basically at a potluck picnic in a park. So they want these people to spend thousands of dollars a week.
Right, in renting a kitchen.
And these are people, the people that work with Food Not Bombs are oftentimes people that they're getting their food from Food Not Bombs because they're also poor.
We are limited means.
Yeah. I mean, you got to call it what it is. It's big government coming in and saying we don't want people helping people. If you're going to do it, you need to either A, give us money, or B, follow all of our rules. Do it on our terms. So let one of our people, if you're home cooking meals, because that's a fucking travesty that you're gonna home cook meals for people. What the fuck is
'cause
wrong with
nobody
you?
ever does
Well-
that.
Yeah, so we're gonna send in one of our agents into your home, and just to make sure, we want to make sure you're doing everything right, and you got to get a permit so we know when you're doing it, where you're doing it, who's
Well,
going to be
there's
there.
a lot of other things that could go into this. Food Not Bombs is a community-based organization.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one of the large organizations that gets funded.
Yeah,
So you knock out community-based organizations, and the people have to be driven.
They have to be
to,
relied to
to a government,
Yes.
business, one of these charities that line their pockets. That happens more often than not. The people don't have a choice.
And that's another thing where there's multiple layers, because not only is there the profit motive where you're taking away business from either
these nonprofits,
for profit or nonprofit. They
Right.
both actually
they're
make
up.
profits. It's just that one of them doesn't
Right,
declare
not-
their profits.
Correct.
And the second thing about that is the government does not want you to know that you can survive without them.
Yeah.
They want you to think that you're depending on them.
Yep.
And that's why they've targeted groups like Food Not Bombs, because Food Not Bombs doesn't just go out and give people food. They allow people to understand that we can take care of ourselves.
You can make a
Right,
difference.
there is. But there's also, there's other issues. There's a Good Samaritan law that covers people doing good works, where if something were to happen, you're protected because you're helping. Another thing is Food Not Bombs is traditionally vegan, vegetarian, very low risk of any sort of food contaminant.
Meat spoiling, exactly, that kind of thing.
Also, in this state, Now, I'm not sure about every other state, but they changed the rules for small home-based businesses where they could produce food products to sell at like country fairs and church bazaars and things like that, where they don't need to get all the licensing and the commercial kitchens. I'm not sure about this city, but other states have made it so that isn't an issue. It's not a real issue. And the thought of getting a permit, even if it's free, is once you allow them to start issuing permits, they can deny permits, and now you have another problem.
They can and do.
Right, which is what they do.
And the thing about that is, with these health issues that they bring up, as I said, if homeless people aren't getting food from somewhere that's been prepared, they're going to those dumpsters directly and taking food out of there, and they're who knows what happened to it. If it's spoiled, they don't have the ability to cook it
or store it. Yeah,
or store
until
it.
it's time to prepare it.
So they're not healthier
Yeah.
options if you're not making homemade food. And one of the things I brought up on one of the articles was, I'm sure that those marshals who poured bleach on that went around to everybody in the park that was holding a picnic that day and threw bleach on their food.
Yeah,
I guarantee you that didn't happen.
It's all that criminalization of the homeless mentality. You know what I mean? What we do at a park, sharing food with people, is no different than you going to the park and having a barbecue with your friends. You know what I mean? Everybody has a right to do that. So for the government to say that you can't do that is just frankly bullshit. Number one, it's mostly for money. In this instance, they claim it wasn't. It's just about permission. You need permission from the crown. You got to go, and it's just, it opens the floodgates for
and
abuse.
it's a power play. They
Yeah.
want to show, this is where you're at. Don't forget we have a boot on your neck, and we'll push down whenever we think we can, which is ACAB. This is why we say ACAB, because the officers that went and did this had to look into the eye of a fellow human being that was hungry and poison that food, and they didn't come with alternative supplies.
Yeah.
I didn't see or hear in the article where they came to provide any sort of sustenance or of anything of nutritional value for them.
And
they just took away.
They didn't test the
them.
food to see if it was healthy or not, see if it was spoiled or not. They just told them, no, you didn't get a permit, now you have to throw it away.
Yeah, they couldn't even determine if the food was unhealthy. It's not like people were getting sick from this group and they went in and were heroes and saved these people. No. Nobody was getting sick. They just
they were
used
monsters.
that as an excuse. It's all a public health scare. Every time that they try to crack down on homelessness, it's, there's a hepatitis outbreak. The food is going to make them sick. It's all bullshit. Every time it's fucking bullshit. And it's a bigger issue because these nonprofits, it's become like an industrial complex, the nonprofit industrial complex where
the homeless industrial complex.
there you go. Yeah, they're big. It's big business and it's government funded. Out here in Vegas, the Courtyard is millions of dollars of government funding going to this nonprofit. So when we do it, the people do it. You're cutting into, it's like competition. And if enough people start helping out the community, they're going to see we don't need the government.
Right, somebody's going to have to give up their $100,000 a year job.
Yep, you're cutting into their contracts. Yep.
Nonprofits are the biggest scam going these days over the past 5 to 10 years. That's what anybody that wants to make easy money, they start a nonprofit. And the thing about that is, you claim it's nonprofit, so you get the tax exclusions. But the reality is, all these big corporate nonprofits have CEOs and executives making 6-figure salaries.
Right. Yeah, it just means that you don't have excess at the end of the year, or you don't have a certain percentage excess. You're allowed to keep a certain percentage, but all the money goes into salaries or trips, parties.
Yeah.
You just don't have excess cash laying around at the end of the year when you do your books.
So I know you guys have seen Channel 8 just put out a piece saying that Metro Police are encouraging you, don't give homeless people money, don't give them a blanket, don't share food with them, donate straight to a nonprofit.
And we say, fuck you.
Yeah, seriously. So, I mean, their argument is that if you provide food to somebody who's houseless, then they're not going to go to these places and get help. As if I dare them to find one homeless person that says, oh, you know what, this guy gave me a blanket, I'm not going to go get help anymore. That's all I need. You know what I mean? There's not a single person out at Circle Park who gets a meal 3 times a week. One meal 3 times a week. So 3 meals a week, that those meals stop them from getting help. No, I have 3 meals a week.
And
I'm good. I don't need anything else from.
And the truth is, if it wasn't for groups that went out there, even the nonprofits and all the government agencies, they do not have enough resources to house and feed the number of homeless people in Las Vegas.
Yep.
Even at the courtyard, they have them lined up on the streets.
Yep.
They're lined up on the streets, living on the streets at a government-funded program.
There's thousands.
And there is not enough. So how can you be taking or stopping people from getting services that there aren't enough of?
No,
So it's disingenuous on their part.
Absolutely.
Well, and also, if you are here in Las Vegas, you are familiar with Four Master and Main, which is the 2 streets where probably 75% of the homeless in Las Vegas congregate. The reason that they go there is because that's where the Starvation Army and those different services are, Catholic charities.
Yeah.
And that's where the shelters are, but obviously there's not enough beds for those people because they're in the street in front, not in the shelter.
Yeah, there's at least 6,000 houseless. That's the estimated size of the houseless community in Las Vegas.
And that's the official number. And you have to remember, not all the homeless go to those census. There's a lot of times you have people who are in crisis, running away from abusive situations, not wanting to be found by their families for whatever personal reasons. That don't count. So there's a large percentage of children, who are coming out of abusive situations that don't want to show up on those records.
Yeah, it's a hard number to gauge.
So,
that's
but
estimate.
It's the low. That's really the lowest.
For sure.
And you could probably go at least 2,000 people more that just kind of don't get on the radar.
Yeah, and alls we have out here is Catholic Charities. That's a few hundred beds, male only. There's the Rescue Mission, couple hundred. Shade Tree, couple hundred. One of them only takes women and children. So if you're a family, first of all, you can't go into a shelter altogether. And then there's the Courtyard that's only not even 200 people. So it's like we're talking not even 1,000, maybe just over 1,000 beds.
Right, and you have to qualify to get in.
Yeah.
So if you have an addiction problem, drugs or alcohol,
no, you fail a breathalyzer.
You cannot go into one. So there's no system for you there.
Yeah.
Mental health facilities. If you have mental health issues, there's also an adequate number of beds in hospitals to take these people in. So they do wind up out on the street, and of course they also wouldn't be accepted into these shelters because of their issues. So, there's this whole group of people that they don't help. And we go out there and we don't ask.
Yeah.
We help if, we don't ask if you're houseless. We don't ask if you have an income. If you come and you see we're having a meal and you ask to share with us, everybody's welcome to come and share.
Yeah.
We don't put any restrictions on it. And that's important because, like I said, a lot of these business or the agencies turn them away.
Yep.
Turn them away. We don't turn anybody away. If you're hungry, you come, you see us, we'll have something for you.
Yep, absolutely.
It's just simple. And every community could do this. What we do isn't that special or that difficult. Even if it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that you put together in a bottle of water, you know that somebody out there is going to appreciate it because it might be the first meal they've had in a day or two.
Yeah. In the summertime, we were giving out ice cold bottled water. I remember this one guy said, "This is the first cold drink I've had in months." A cold drink. And then in the winter, we do coffee, we do blankets, whatever. I mean, the littlest things. Don't go and give it to Goodwill. That's for damn sure, because most of it's just going to be recycled anyways, because they sell it by the pound to companies that recycle this shit. Go and give it to a homeless person. Fuck what they say on Channel 8 News or what
a lot
Metro
of people don't
says.
realize Goodwill's not a nonprofit.
No,
and they also
makes money.
have a clearance where they don't have to pay the minimum wage to the it's disabled workers, mostly mentally disabled,
Right.
Yeah.
but they pay them like $3 an hour,
Yeah, it's crazy.
and so they take advantage of that. And one of the other things is we don't limit ourselves to homeless people. There are people that are
Just-
poor
yeah.
and they don't have a lot of money, and they might have to decide, are they going to eat or are they going to have power that month?
Right, or pay rent,
Yeah.
or buy medicine.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen it. People
Yeah.
drive up to Food Not Bombs and get their meal and then leave. You know.
That's right. So now they could go and pay for their prescriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
they're not exactly homeless, but they're definitely living in poverty, as most Americans, well, not most, but about half of Americans are. So yeah, it's just crazy, man. When I hear stories like this, it really pisses me off. The next story really pissed me off too. This is a 4-year-old girl left in freezing van overnight after cops arrested her mom and impounded the van. So the mom was arrested on suspicion of DUI. Don't even know if she was, but there were 2 kids in the car. They took one of the kids, left the other 4-year-old in the car. Like, how do you not see the 4-year-old in the car? But it was fucking freezing outside.
I think it was
Left her
23
in-
degrees
Yeah,
that night, and they left the toddler.
Which-
unbelievable. Impounded it and left her there overnight.
Yeah, which if you're a parent and you leave your child in the car in
Oh,
extremely
child
hot or
neglect.
cold conditions, that's a felony.
Yeah,
Correct.
if a cop does it, it's like, oops, sorry. Nothing happened to these cops.
Yeah, fortunately, the kid was okay,
Yeah, fortunately, I mean, they crying, bawling her eyes out when they found her.
but
Probably
she-
scarred for life. Like,
but not dead.
But not dead, thank
you know,
God.
thank God for that, because you very easily freeze to death, especially when you're that small.
yeah, it's unbelievable. This story pissed me off too. All this shit pisses me off, man. It's like following all these stories week after week. It's just so much shit, and you wonder why we say ACAB. But this was a grandma that was arrested, was in jail for months because the cop wanted a bust. They needed up those numbers. This is meth. No, bro, it was cotton candy. That was a bag of cotton candy, and she went to jail for months. Just crazy. It's been proven that those field kits that they have are just a scam. Like, you can put coffee grinds in it, take something off of the floor of the vehicle, dirt, what have you, put it in there, shake it up. It's going to test positive like 90-something% of the time.
Which is kind of
Yeah.
like the drug dogs. They have
Oh, yeah.
signals that, you know, they tap or snap, or
Absolutely.
and the dogs go crazy and do the indication that there's drugs.
Yep.
When it's nothing but learned behavior, they're taught
Mhm.
at that signal to act this way, and it gives them
Oh,
Yeah,
you
and-
can.
probable cause,
Yeah.
and it's bullshit.
It
It's all
is
bullshit.
And the inaccuracy of drug tests is not some new revelation. One of the first stories posted to Nevada Cop Block was about the fact that basically you can put anything into that drug kit and it will
Mhm.
test as drugs.
Yep. Just fake science.
And that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time. They still use these kits, and it's even used in court. I mean, it's crazy. It's like breathalyzers, too. Like, breathalyzers, just so that you know, if you fail a breathalyzer, they'll bring it up in court, but you can't be convicted, in Nevada at least, on a breathalyzer alone. So that's why they usually draw your blood, too. But those are just crazy inaccurate as well. So know your rights, know the system, know how it works. This was a really fucked up story. Could have been a hero story.
Yeah.
Security guard in Chicago. There was an active shooter, went into, what was it, a bar?
It was a
or
good guy with a gun that stopped a bad guy and then got murdered by a worse guy.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, so he was a security guard who took the gunman out, and when cops got on the scene, he had his gun, so the cops shot him.
Right.
You know.
And people there were telling the cop that he was a security guard.
But you know it
And-
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know it didn't matter to the cops. They want that kill.
And eyewitnesses said that the cop never said drop the
Right.
firearm, never even gave him a chance to disobey or not comply. Like, they just
They
fucking shot
want the
dude.
kill. They
Yeah.
want the kill. They want to go in there and kill. And this is what they do. I'm not surprised that it turned out this way.
Yeah.
You know, the majority of stories that we do is cops looking for a kill so they could get their tattoo.
Yeah.
So,
And then where's the NRA and all this? Like, whenever like when Philando Castile got shot, you would think, I mean, I know if it was a white guy, the NRA would have been like, what the fuck, been all up in arms. Here's a hero with a gun. You know, it's one of those narratives that they can get behind. Look, good guy with gun, stop bad guy with gun. And then the cops killed him for being a law-abiding, hero, gun owner. But because he's black, they don't say shit.
And the history of the NRA is that they were instrumental in eliminating guns in California and restricting
The
people
Black
of color
Panthers.
from having
Right.
weapons.
The NRA is phony.
Reagan, who, the right praises as this great president. They love their guns, and they praise Reagan, but they don't realize that he's the one that, I think he was governor in California or mayor when he helped pass those laws, gun control laws, to take away guns.
Yeah,
from
and if you go back to
minorities.
the very beginning of gun bans, the main reason that they were passed was because southern states were worried that freed slaves would take retribution against their former slave masters.
Yeah,
So they wanted to eliminate people of color from having guns.
yeah. This next one's just ridiculous. I'm gonna play the video for you, and then we'll tell you what happened.
Put your hands behind your fucking back! Put your hands behind your back! Get on the fucking ground, dude.
Stop resisting.
Pricks.
You're under arrest.
Get down.
For what? For what?
Get
Put your hands behind your back!
Get down. What?
Taser.
They say it, watch.
What? Because! Ow! Ow! Put your hands behind your fucking back!
Get your arm out.
Put your hands behind your back! Put your hands behind your fucking back! Do it now, you're gonna get it again. Put your hands You're under arrest for using a fake 20!
Really?
Obstruction!
Bend your leg.
You're under arrest for using a fake 20.
An obstruction. God forbid you don't want to be fucking manhandled and you're an innocent man and fighting for your fucking survival.
So it turns out they released the guy and dropped the charges because it was a real 20. It wasn't a fake 20. So they beat the shit out of him, take him to jail, kidnap him, cage him for nothing, for absolutely nothing.
And there's 2 or 3 stories out there where people aren't familiar with $2 bills, and they've claimed that somebody had counterfeit money. So,
Yeah.
if you're somebody who takes money for a living, maybe you should know about like what real
Currency.
money looks like.
Yeah. What about that CVS worker called the cops on the black lady that had a coupon? He said,
Right.
Oh.
she's using fake coupons.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man. These people.
And, this shit
Yes.
turns out bad, though, because when the police show up, they instigate violence and escalate the situation where innocent people get hurt and die.
Yeah.
And
Anytime you call the cops, this is a risk you take.
Yep.
well, that's the thing is you should never call the cops unless you're comfortable with the person that you're calling the police on being murdered,
Exactly.
being killed.
Don't call them over some trivial bullshit.
And they've been training people for years, and this is not. This is the results of that. That training. That people's first reaction is to call the police. Anytime they have any sort of conflict, if they go through a Burger King drive-through and they get the wrong size fries, they call the police, which has actually happened. So if you order no ketchup on your hamburger and they put ketchup on it, then you're going to call 911, and that's the result of that training, and the result of that action is that somebody might die because you have an expired coupon.
Right.
Permit patties, barbecue Becky's, they're fucking everywhere. There's just video after video of people, racially profiling and discriminating and just,
Well,
calling
I
the
mean,
cops
it's just
over
innocent.
anything.
I don't know if I posted the article, but there was an article where a roommate was concerned that he couldn't get a hold of his roommate that was in the home, and went and called the police for a health and welfare check. He's like, hey, my roommate may be, in distress. I can't get a hold of him. Can you knock on the door and make sure that he's okay, didn't fall down and hurt himself? Police went in and murdered his roommate on a health and welfare check.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time that's happened. by the way. So
he called for his buddy. They showed up and killed him.
Right.
That's fucking crazy.
So, his roommate killed him. He was worried about his health, but he ensured that his roommate would die
Well, if
by
you think-
calling the police.
If you think that's crazy, here's
It gets crazier,
Yeah.
folks.
Here
Fucking
in
sit
Fresno.
back. This is a great one. I love this story.
over in Fresno. The Fresno Bee
Which
reports.
is crazy. Their second in charge got busted selling cocaine like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
Like
that.
Fresno's fucking insane.
This is a former police captain shot and killed by officer in Northeast Fresno. So the cops showed up, killed another, retired cop. He was a police captain in the Fresno Police Department. Then he retired as a captain there and went to another department where he was the police chief, and then retired, and they showed up and killed him. So I got a quick press briefing here.
At approximately 11:30 this morning, we
We
received
fucked
a
up.
911
We
call
fucked up.
from a female who said that her husband was inside of a 292 East Moody, that he had blood on his arms, that he had cut himself, and that he was trying to kill himself.
Is that why he's wearing
She
the black
also told
thing
our
on the badge?
dispatchers that he had
They
some
actually
prior
just
history
wear those all the
of,
time
of
now.
mental health as of late.
I believe it.
They literally
And, she was afraid that he was trying to take his life today. Our officers responded to the location with
And made
two
sure that happened.
police officers,
We did it
one
for him.
veteran
Yeah.
officer, and then one officer who was recently hired was a trainee.
Oh, a rookie.
The veteran officer
got on
was
scene
a
and
corporal, was a
killed
field
him,
training officer. The officers went to the front door of the residence after meeting with the wife, getting some background information. She did say that he was still armed with a large knife in his hand when she last saw him. As they went to the front door and opened it, they saw him inside. They saw what was described as a pool of blood inside of the doorway. Immediately, the individual jumped up, had the knife in his hand, and charged out of the front door at both of the officers. The training officer was armed with a taser, less lethal device, and he fired that device at the individual. Unfortunately, it had little effect to no effect because one of the darts struck the individual in the belt, and the individual continued to advance towards the officers while yelling, had the knife in front of him, and was within a few feet of the second officer, who was again a trainee, and that officer fired what appears to be 2 rounds, striking the individual, and he was pronounced deceased at the front door or in the front yard. But it was after some valiant life-saving efforts on the part of the officers that were there, as well as paramedics. The
Valiant
individual, I'm
life-saving
sad
efforts.
to say,
Put 2 in him.
is a former police captain with the Fresno Police Department, 63-year-old Marty West, who's been a long-time friend of mine and a family member, I might add. And
is he tearing up?
he
killed him.
retired from our agency as a captain, and then went on to be the police chief of the Oakdale Police Department for 5 more years. He retired from our agency in February of 2007. Immediately went to the Oakdale Police Department, again served 5 years as a police chief, and retired about a little over 6 years ago from that department. I've had a conversation with Marty's wife, obviously very, very distraught, hurting. She
never
going through a
should
lot
have
of
called the
difficult times
cops.
right now is the family.
She should know better, right? I mean, I'm sure that the reason he tried to kill himself was that, being a police officer all those years and everything that
guilt.
he's done, the guilt gets to you.
Well, and you want to know,
And
I'd
that's
like
just-
to know why he retired and then went to a different department. I'd like to know what he did that
Yeah.
precipitated that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Obviously,
Well, maybe we could do that for
well,
next week's
obviously I
show.
don't
We'll do-
know, but I suspect,
Hmm.
based on past, that
Smells fishy.
Right? There's a pattern here.
Police killing police. I mean, that's where. Even an ex-police chief having a mental crisis can't survive. We're all fucked.
That's why we're here, trying to warn people.
Yeah. This was a crazy story. This was a tragedy, really. This happened back in March. Denver Police Department killed the gentleman on the right. I forget his name. Hold on. Stephen Wen. So they killed him looking for this other dude. They thought he was the other guy on the left. I forget his name. What is it? Rafael Landeros.
Well, they do look quite a lot alike.
All right.
Yeah.
Shit. Unbelievable.
Close enough for the cops.
Bro. Unbelievable.
I mean, the guy on the left's not. He doesn't have any kind of distinctive characteristics or anything.
That's true. There we go.
So,
Crazy, dude. So the story is this dude's driving. They think it's the other guy. High-speed chase ensues, and they end up running him off the road and just unloaded on the car. The guy was shot 50 times. He had a
Buddy in the car.
A buddy in the car. They shot the buddy. The buddy survived. I mean, when you watch this video, you're gonna it's amazing that he survived. Check this out. It's just disgusting. Multiple officers. Oh, and the reason why this stuff was released was because the officers involved were just recently acquitted, saying that there was obviously no wrongdoing here. Killing somebody who had nothing to do with who they were looking for.
Yeah.
Shooting them 50 times. Totally justified. Just imagine going about your day and cops just fucking run you off the road and dump 50 into your vehicle,
well, and the
thinking
thing,
you're somebody else.
Yeah, the thing about that is, if you were driving shitty and you knocked a guy off the road and he died, you'd get charged for the crime.
Mhm.
So if you accidentally, find the wrong guy and put
Right.
50 holes in him, at the very least, there should be some sort of negligence.
Yeah, but nothing. Even with video evidence, there's no wrongdoing. Then they say he threw a gun out the window, which is complete bullshit.
Westbound through Holly.
There was no gun found. There's no...
How many cops total were there that were shooting?
Well, there's 3 officers' body cams right here that we're going to watch, so...
So that means they had to reload.
Oh yeah, you'll check this fucking shit out, bro. One guy, I think he dumped like 3 clips. The guy they were looking for, I guess, had already shot at officers. So that's why they thought he was such a threat. Here we go.
He crashed. Look, he's done.
Show me your head! 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 Show me your head!
It's not like he tried to drive away. He was shot, and then he took his foot off the brake.
There goes clip 2.
And on top of that, you're supposed to interpret that fucking growl that he's doing at the beginning.
Show me your head! Show me your head!
You just fucking emptied 2 clips into me. How am I going to show you fucking anything? Clip 3.
Wish I could fast forward it, but I can't.
Like, was he eating a sandwich or something while he was yelling that? 'Cause, like, first of all,
Oh,
I
yeah,
wouldn't-
it's chaw.
well, first of all, I wouldn't know what he was telling me to do because he's fucking ineligible. And so after, obviously, there's like just the one guy here, right?
Yeah.
So then the other cops show up after, he's already pumped 3 clips into him. And he's not moving or anything, but 2 other cops need to shoot.
No, there was another cop on the other side that's out of frame right now.
Oh, so we...
That
So
you'll see
only one.
next.
Only one got lucky enough to get there in time to shoot.
Honestly, they're lucky that there wasn't crossfire and this other cop that you see next didn't get shot by
I
another
would say it's
officer.
luck. It's unfortunate.
Stay behind, stay behind.
Now in this next body cam, notice the officer, when he's firing, you can't really see much because of the angle of the camera, and then after he's done firing, he fixes the camera. It's like he knew that the camera wasn't going to be able to see anything, and then after he fires, he
It's almost
fixes
like
it.
he did it on purpose.
Oh, almost, yeah. But they would never do that.
Wait till they find out about that trick of disconnecting the battery.
Right? And opening your hood so you get your dash cam.
Or just
Blocking.
pulling the antenna off and throwing it fucking on the side of the road.
Yeah, they.
In
Yep.
L.A. and the minority neighborhoods.
Yep.
And this guy comes in with the AR. I don't think he shoots though.
40th and Albion. 40th and Albion.
Northbound Albion, coming from Colorado. We never saw him yet. He never got out. Never got out.
Oh, he never got out. Huh?
Yeah.
Nobody got out.
Yeah, you had dumped at least fucking 50 shots in there, bro.
Right. Now, people might question and say, well, look, he ran. But he had a better chance of fucking running
Well, yeah,
than if he
people-
would have stopped. I mean, what do you do? If
had a
you're
g-
innocent.
Yeah, he had a gang of people with a history of violence following him.
Right.
Look,
Like, what the fuck,
regardless,
man?
this
I didn't
dude-
do anything, and these fucking guys are coming down on me. I'm dead.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I've seen it enough times. You take your chances.
Regardless, this dude was not going home. It's a case of mistaken identity. They thought this was a murderer. They
Right.
fucking-
So when the cops stop
wasn't
you,
making
you
it
don't.
out.
You could almost guarantee that they're gonna fucking do you harm.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you have to fight or flight, man. These guys fucking take off because you're afraid they're gonna die because of the history of fucking police brutality and the violence and the murder that they commit.
Here it is. Oh.
Westbound 38, guys. Westbound 38.
I mean, with the license plate readers, they couldn't determine that this wasn't even the vehicle, wasn't the right vehicle, let alone the right person.
Who says that they didn't determine that?
Yeah.
You have no idea what this cop was thinking. He might have known it all along, but wants to get a tattoo. Got to get your killing for the day.
A bunch of fucking cowards, that's what it is.
Cars in Colorado. Westbound from Monica, cars over to 40th Colorado.
It's like, all right, let me fix the camera so you can see this part,
Yeah.
and then let me point it to the ground when it's time to shoot.
Westbound through Holly.
Threw a gun out, Holly and 40th.
Keep going, coming Dahlia. Let him out. I'm gonna find Dahlia. He's gonna hit that metal or that cement up here, so be careful. Watch this. Sharp turn.
We need a car at 40th in Colorado. 40th in Colorado.
40 on behind the 40 to Colorado. I'll shut it down.
He's coming up. High rate speed. He's gonna lose it. Yeah. He popped high. He's crashing up. Show me your hands right now! Show me your hands right
This is
now!
the first guy to
Show me your
shoot.
hands! Show me your hands! He's going out right side, right side, right side!
That was the other guy was the first one to shoot.
God forbid he fucking gave up, then you don't get your kill.
He's shooting. All right, let me load.
Show me your hands now! Show me your hands! Hands now! Show me your hands!
All right, he's obviously dead. I can fix the camera now. Oh, more gunshots.
Do not move!
Okay, now you guys can see.
Hey, come to me! Come to me!
Which, by the way, you know, it's another one of those deals where he's yelling, "Show me your hands and don't move."
Yeah,
So, which is,
yeah, another case of two officers involved in a shooting, both giving conflicting commands.
To ensure that you don't comply so they can
Gives you
get
a
off,
license to kill him. Yeah.
right?
This is the last body cam. This is a female officer involved. She does fire rounds. She was also acquitted. of any wrongdoing. She just wants in on it. Like you see her, she pulls up, gets out, and like everybody's shooting. She's like, well, fuck.
You know, back in the fucking
I want in on
squad
this.
room or in the fucking locker room, they're all doing high fives.
Yeah, she wants her pat on the back or her tattoo.
Oneida, northbound Oneida. That guy's coming at him.
2200, pit when you can, pit when you can. Make sure we have rep officers. Playing close, stay close.
Westbound 38, guys. Westbound 38. That's the patrol guys with me.
Northbound Newport from 38. Northbound through 39, Newport. Westbound Smith.
We need to get more uniform guys up here. I'm secondary. We need to get more patrol cars with them.
TAC 23, I'm with them. Westbound through Monaco. Can we get cars over at 40th Colorado? 2200, give me a mark primary. 243 Baker, you just threw out a gun out the window.
32 Charlie, got him.
Again, that was
Westbound through
incorrect.
Holly.
There was no gun thrown out.
Threw a gun out, Holly and 40th.
Yep, keep repeating it doesn't make it true.
Coming up on Dahlia.
Charlie, we need a car at 40th and Colorado. 40th and Colorado.
40 on him, on 40 to Colorado. I'll shut it down. He's coming up there, high rate of speed, high rate of speed. He's going to lose his car. He's crashed out, he's crashed out.
40th and Albion. 40th and Albion. Shots fired! Shots fired! Run into him! Run into him! Get your hands out! Get your hands out!
Don't move, hands up. Don't move, hands up.
Watch the shot fire. Get behind cover.
Jesus. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Was she yelling, "Get that ass out"? That's what I think she said. Like, that's the other, like, first of all, they're yelling fucking two different fucking things at you, but then you can't even interpret what the fuck they're saying.
Yeah.
And this isn't like somewhere where they have an accent. This is fucking Denver. I mean, what the fuck? Yeah.
This is another website worth checking out. PNAC. It's photography is not a crime. They got a lot of good police accountability stuff on there. But yeah, that's it's over an hour already, so I think that's our show, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Check it out next week. Hopefully we'll have a special guest for you. Can't reveal who it is yet because we haven't nailed down the
Mystery
date.
guest.
But it's yeah, I'm really excited about our next guest. So stay tuned next week. Do we have any events we want to announce real quick?
Food Not Bombs Sunday at 11:30.
Right,
What
which
is it?
is-
Mayfair Park.
Yep.
It's on,
Mayfield.
Mayfield.
Or Mayfield or
Something. May
Mayfair.
something. It's between 14th and 15th.
Yeah. I mean, if you know us, you know where we're at.
Yeah.
We'll be there until we go back to our old stomping ground at Circle Park.
Yep.
Which should be coming up within the next week or so, right?
Supposedly it's supposed to reopen
November 30th is
Yeah.
supposed to be the last day, so December 1st.
Just in time for the holidays.
I want to give a shout out to Fresno People's Media, since we were talking about Fresno. So you should check out that because they do a lot of, well, they do Fresno, obviously, and they like the surrounding area, those little farmvilles around there. And like I said, Fresno is a crazy, like, as small as they are, They do a lot of crazy shit. So if you got an afternoon to burn, go write about some fucking corrupt cops out there.
There you go. All right. Thanks for tuning in. It's ACAB Radio.